Hello. Today I'm going to talk to you about the full moon. The full moon is going to occur on the 10th of July 2025 at 20:37, which is 8:37 p.m. Universal time as usual, of course. So you see the moon is here at 18 degrees and 50 minutes in Capricorn. And the sun, of course, is right across here at 18 degrees and 50 minutes in Cancer. The moon represents the sign Cancer. So that means that it's going to be an important event, which will lead to the new moon that will occur on the 24th of July in Leo. The fact that the moon represents Cancer means that the sun, which is in Cancer, more or less depends on the energy of the moon to express itself. So anything to do with family, the emotions as well, and whatever may become something important as far as our private life is concerned, maybe sentimental life, all that is going to become more important, of course, but the moon is in Capricorn. So that will help us deal and control our emotions so that we don't make any mistakes due to the fact that when you're under emotional stress, you lose a fair bit of objectivity and rationality. So it makes it more difficult to really organize things and react in orderly manner to whatever happens, especially when emotions are triggered naturally. There is a link here with Mars, which we call a trine. It is a beneficial aspect. So the energy of Mars is going to be useful because by the same token, although it's not drawn here because it's a bit wide, there is an element of sextile, which is a 60-degree angle, linking together signs that belong to elements that are compatible. Here we have water with Cancer, and here we have Earth with Virgo. So earth and water do mix together quite easily. It is a mixture that is constructive, cement, clay, whatever, that we can use to build. So there is something constructive about it because the moon in Capricorn, is going to make us more rational. At least we'll try to be more rational. And the sun, which is in the moon's sign, depends on the energy of the moon to really express itself in the best possible manner. So it is going to express itself through the energy of Cancer, but through the energy of the moon as well, which is in Capricorn. So it will definitely help us stay rational and maybe be more constructive during this period until the new moon in Leo. As you can see, the moon is going to reach the position of Pluto soon after this full moon. And Pluto represents what we can, do to regenerate ourselves. Pluto represents rebirth. It also represents what we can destroy in view of reconstructing on new ground. So the fact that there is this opposition is natural because that's what causes the full moon. But during a full moon, we're all more emotional. Thanks to the position of the moon in Capricorn, we are going to most probably be able to control better our emotions and to make our emotions more constructive as well. That's good news. And thanks to Mars, which is in harmony with the moon as well, that will help us definitely act according to what we want to achieve concretely. And the fact that Mars is in Virgo makes it more analytic. So analyzing what the consequences of our actions may be will help us, well, avoid mistakes as much as possible. But there is a discordance here with Venus. I will talk about it a bit later on, but it is an interesting configuration for sure. So let's have a look now at the transit, or the moment when the moon reaches Pluto. Here it is. You see, on the 11th of July at 10:41 p.m. Universal Time, the moon reaches Pluto. Pluto awakes. Yes, naturally. The moon is going to trigger the energy of Pluto, which is regeneration once again. And because you can see here that Uranus is in Gemini now, on the 11th of July, it would have been in Gemini since the 7th of July, so for about 4 days. And that makes it very strongly in harmony with Pluto. Change, regeneration, transformation, deep transformation, long-lasting transformation. That is amplified by this conjunction here involving Saturn and Neptune. So that's very interesting, because we have here Saturn and Neptune, we have Pluto here, we have Uranus here, and we have Venus as well. Why not? Now, of course, there is a square here with this conjunction. But what Pluto can bring us or allow us to obtain is that regeneration. So there is most probably something that is going to end in order that something else can begin. It's like ending a cycle, but the cycle that is ending is producing a very important change, a very exceptional change. That is represented by Uranus. And Saturn and Neptune represents the potential that we may have as well to realize a dream. If it's not a dream, which is represented by Neptune, it is an ideal sort of situation. So what is it for you? What would it be for you? When the moon arrives here, you're going to feel it. We're going to probably understand what it is and perhaps confirm what you can do so that you obtain what you want, the change, the regeneration, the deep transformation, and the long-lasting results. It is potentially possible. But there is here the black moon and Vesta. So the black moon represents doubt. It represents what we don't know, but sometimes what we don't want to know. So it's something hidden somehow. If you don't take that into consideration, you may deter the potential represented by the configurations that I've just explained between Pluto, Uranus, Venus, Saturn, and Neptune. This triangle here is very strong and very positive. So your responsibility, and mine as well, will be to make it work. And to make it work as we want it to work, we need to unveil something that is not clear enough, that may even become a source of problems later on, which would, of course, make this potentially very beneficial configuration less active. So don't deter the potential that you will have during this period until the new moon, while the moon transits in this area here until the new moon, which will occur here somewhere in Leo. Well, it will, of course, join with the North Lunar Node, with Saturn and Neptune, with Uranus, Venus, and every time it's going to recreate this great triangle. So there will be more than one opportunity for you to obtain the best If you miss out on the 11th of July, you may find that something much better or another chance, a second chance, is possible when the moon reaches Saturn and Neptune. And if you still can't make it on that particular day, you will still have, I would say, a last chance until the beginning of the new moon, because that is, of course, symbolizing a new cycle. So you have to be ready. If you're ready, you will take advantage not only of this conjunction Uranus with Venus not far, but also Jupiter, which is not a bad asset at all, even though you'll have to be careful about it. The next picture that I want to show you is when the moon reaches 14 degrees or something in Aquarius. And that will be on the 12th of July at 8 p.m. or around that time. I've named this one Say It All or Say Nothing. So because it is opposite Mercury, it's going to trigger the energy of Mercury, which of course, as you know, represents communication and our ability to express what we want to let others know. But there is this discordance here with the Black Moon and Vesta. This one here, see? And this one here. So that means that we may also be tempted to say things that are not based on proper investigation. So that means that if we don't know what we're talking about, the best is probably to stay put and say nothing, but listen, because listening allows one to learn, whereas talking is only a projection of what you've learned. So that's different. And the Black Moon represents something that may be attracting you, interesting you, but that you're not necessarily very proud of, and that may actually destabilize you if it's uncovered. So it may be some facet of your personality that you are not really ready to share with others, and for good reasons, most probably. But still, you may find on that particular day and time, you may find yourself quite awkward in dealing with other people, because what you're going to hear, what you're going to say, what you're going to think about what you hear will be somehow not very clear at all. So if you don't understand exactly, just let it go, because you'll have other better occasions to come back to this topic and perhaps understand better, and then express more interesting aspects of this situation. Now, the next transit of the moon is when it reaches the opposition with Mars. And on the same day, the 15th of July, at 4 a.m. Universal Time, that's when the moon will be exactly opposite Mars. And the following aspect is when it reaches the North Lunar Node on the same day at about 1 p.m. Universal Time. So the first one I called, Is There a War? Well, there are wars at the moment around the world in various places, some of which we know about, some we don't hear about. But anyway, the moon here is going to trigger the energy of Mars, which is something we need to take into consideration, because Mars is in discordance with Venus, and Venus represents love, and Mars would represent perhaps hate. Love and hate do cohabit somehow. So we'll need to make sure that what happens and the basis of our reactivity, decisions and so on, is not triggered by a feeling, a sentiment, an emotion, something that is going to make us less objective, but more aggressive, perhaps. In any case, too much in a hurry, impatient, too much in a hurry to obtain what we want, what we desire, or the person we love, for example. We may become more reactive in our relationship, which could, of course, trigger some conflicts. Now, the following transit, when the moon reaches the north lunar node here, on the 15th of July, choose a direction. Yes, okay, but which one? That is the question that is asked through this configuration. The reason is that the north lunar node represents that to which we should be tending to go in life. Okay, but where is it? That is the question. And across is Mars, of course, and across is also the south lunar node, naturally. So the south lunar node represents that which we should abandon, let go of, so that we can feel lighter and quicker to reach that goal of us, toward your north lunar node. So the moon is going to call on us for that. But it may be that we are too much in a hurry to get to where we want to go. And so we would sort of, with Mars next to the south lunar node, we could be tempted to abandon what we will regret afterwards. So it's very necessary then to think about that and to try to control our natural instinct of wanting to get to where we have decided to go. Now, it could be something that you have to do, but it can also be something that you've chosen to do. You'll have a choice in any case, but you may not have much time to make that choice. And if you are biased by some sort of feeling represented by Venus, love, for example, or hate, may become a source of disruption in the manner in which you will deal with that direction that you need to take in order to reach a goal, an important goal, which will have long-lasting consequences. Because the next transit of the moon is, of course, when it reaches Saturn and Neptune. So we'll have a look at that. You see, that will be on the 16th of July at 8 in the morning, Universal Time. I've called this chart, Don't Stop Dreaming, but Make It Happen Concretely. Well, that is due to this conjunction between Neptune and Saturn. And the moon is going to trigger the energy of this conjunction. But this conjunction is not the last one. That means that both planets, as you can see, are retrograde. And because they are retrograde, they will move back into Pisces for a while and come back together in Aries at the beginning of next year, 2026. And on the 20th of February, there will be an exact conjunction between the two. And that's perhaps a kind of objective to keep in mind. You do things now, you organize, you work for what you want, to obtain what you want as far as the ideal situation is concerned, and you wait until the next conjunction in Aries, and that will be, of course, in February 2026. Of course, it all depends on your life and your objective, your situation and projects and so on. But we all have a kind of ideal life in our mind. What would you do if you could? If you had all the power to obtain what you want, what would it be? What is your ideal And what is your dream of a better life, of a better world, perhaps? That is represented by Neptune. But Saturn is there, it represents reality. It is there to show that it is because we will use our rational mind and rational tools and rational manners of expressing what we want that we will succeed in realizing our dream. So it may take time, of course, and it may also take quite a lot of effort. Now, we'll have to watch the moon in February 2026, because when the conjunction reoccurs, it will be the last time it does for maybe a couple of centuries. So it is a unique conjunction in this sign, Aries, which is the sign of action, but it is also the sign of the god of war. So we need to also remember that depending on how we deal with the energy of Mars, we could find ourselves in big trouble. And that is for the whole world, but it also applies for some people more than others. You see, Jupiter is still in discordance with this conjunction. So that's also going to be triggered. And it means that we may be excessive in the manner in which we will want to obtain what we want. You know, we may get involved in a project or a situation that surpasses very much our ability to deal with it. So just remember that as well, because it could imply money, it could imply family relationships and your home and so on. So be aware of the fact that this conjunction, which is a unique one, that will occur in February, will very much depend on this one here, which will occur on the 16th of July, and triggered by the moon, it's going to become very, very strong. And that will be a moment, a decisive moment, when you will actually need to make some very important decisions. And Uranus is in harmony with it, and Pluto is in harmony with it as well. So this great triangle of which I've spoken before will be recreated once more, and that will be a moment, a very important moment to progress toward what you want to achieve. And the change is not far off because, it may occur when the moon reaches Uranus, which is only, about 5 days later. The next transit of the moon will occur on the 18th of July at about 3 in the morning. I've called it Chiron, the inner doctor, promotes good health. If what? Well, if we look after our health. Now you see Chiron is here, so the moon is next to it, and it squares the sun. And it happens that the sun plays a vital role as far as our health is concerned, because it represents our physical body as well as our psychological self as well. So the fact that there is a discordance between the two means that we could feel a bit strange. There could be some strange symptoms. If that's the case, well, look into it, you know. Don't just rely on your potential regenerative power to just forget about it and think that it's going to go by itself. Maybe it won't. You see, there is a false square here. That's why it's drawn in gray between Pluto and Chiron. And the false square, to me, a false aspect is a false friend. But in this case, because it is a square, it shows that there is something that may happen that, if you don't take into consideration, could become much more worrying. And this actually false square is a sextile. It's hiding a sextile, but it is expressing itself as a sextile, although it is a square. You don't know what I mean. I mean that because Aquarius and Aries are separated by a sextile, 60 degrees. And a sextile is a beneficial configuration. Air and fire, they do need one another for sure. So here you may feel, due to the fact that there is a full square that looks like a sextile, you may feel that you are stronger than anyone else and anything else, and that you have sufficient strength to overcome any obstacles. Maybe true, maybe not. Don't presume, just make sure that you know exactly what's going on and then deal with it. Otherwise, if you sort of forget about it or don't want to think about it, it may become worse. And it's not just health as such, as I say every time. It could be financial health, professional health, or whatever. It's for you to decide, because you, of course, know your life better than I do, for sure. Now, the next transit of the moon is when it reaches a position that creates an opposition with this two here. Those two here are the Black Moon and Vesta. And that will be on the 19th of July at 5 in the morning universal time. I've called it discovering a secret or being a victim of a lie. Woohoo! Yes, the secret is represented by the Black Moon, but the lie as well, because Vesta, which is next to it, represents our need to preserve harmony and balance as much as possible, so well-being, more or less, in our life. So we may be prepared to lie to make sure that we preserve that, And that preservation is not just for ourselves, it may be also for the other person or other people concerned, so that the relationship doesn't suffer. But if we lie, we may, of course, have to accept the consequences. But that also shows that someone may lie to you in order to preserve or restore or, harmony and well-being in the relationship. That will be for you to decide, of course, which is which. Once again, I don't know your life, but you will most probably understand what I mean when you're in the situation around the 19th of July, very early in the morning. But, it can happen anytime during the day, because the moon, as you can see, is at 12 degrees. So that means that it had entered the sign Taurus about 24 hours before, and it will remain in Taurus for about, 30 hours? So for those 2.5 days while the moon transits in Taurus, it is going to affect directly the energy of the Black Moon and Vesta. So you'll need to really be careful not to say anything that you don't really believe or that you use to preserve. But preserving will not necessarily be a sufficient excuse for you to be forgiven if you do lie. And it will not be a sufficient excuse for the other person or people if they are the liars. Remember that. Now, let's have a look at the next transit of the moon on the 20th of July, 11 in the morning, universal time once again, changing pace to recover the right tempo. At times it is necessary to do so. It is necessary to do so because if you lose the tempo, you tend to, either be too fast to do or to reach whatever you need to do or reach, or too slow. So you need to be in the right position. Now, the moon reaches Uranus. So it reaches what represents the change. Pluto is in harmony with Uranus. And this conjunction here is also in harmony with Uranus. Although Saturn, Neptune, and Pluto are retrograde, which tends to make them perhaps less energetic, less constructive perhaps as well. But still, when the moon reaches Uranus, you will know what is going to change radically and perhaps forever in your life. But you'll have a second chance, as I said earlier on, when this conjunction between Saturn and Neptune occurs again in February next year. That may be a period of preparation for the change. The drastic change that Uranus represents will most probably be preceded by smaller changes that are very, very important because they will make the difference. And if you are ready for those changes, then the one that may be coming in February or around February 2026 will be dealt with in very, very good manner. And that will make the difference. Now, the conjunction is going to awake the need for change, but it's also going to create an expansion of your imagination and of your ability to adapt to the change or any change that may occur around you. So that's a very important day, the 20th of July. Remember that. And if it's your birthday, for example, on that day, you will benefit from this configuration involving Uranus, Pluto, Saturn, and Neptune, and perhaps the moon. If you're lucky enough to have your birthday that falls on the 20th of July at 11 a.m. Universal Time, of course. The next transit of the moon is when it reaches Venus, here. And that will be on the 21st of July at around 7 p.m. Universal Time. Love at first sight may not last. It's true. We all know that. But when you're in a situation, when love is triggered, it's triggered so strongly, thanks to Mars, in a way, because that's going to make it a passion, not just love at first sight. It's going to be much stronger. But as I said earlier on, Venus is love, Mars is hate. God of war, goddess of love. They're in discordance. So you may be tempted to react much too quickly, too strongly, too passionately to a feeling that will be triggered by Venus. Love. It's not just love as such. It's also desire. So you may desire to acquire something, a new car, a new dress, a new something that really makes you excited and impulsive as well. So impulsive buying may trigger some problems later on. Financial problems, of course, and other types of problems, perhaps problems at home, problems with your partner, because that person may not accept the fact that you bought that or that you decided to look like that as well, because Venus also represents what we want to look like, to be appreciated, to be noticed as well. So that's a very interesting moment, and it's 7 in the afternoon, Universal Time, so it's late enough and early enough in some region of the world to take advantage of this. If you can control the energy of Mars, what you're going to decide to do because you want it, because you would love it, or love this person, if you can control the energy of Mars, and if you can let go of what needs to be forgotten and that is represented by the south lunar node. And of course, there will be another square with the north lunar node, so you may feel it a bit difficult to decide, which way to go, what to choose, and so on. If you're not sure, don't choose anything. Just wait and see. The next transit of the moon is when it reaches Jupiter, here. And that will be at 9 degrees, almost 10 degrees in Cancer. And that will be on the 23rd of July at 5 in the morning, Universal Time. I've called this one, don't ask for too much. You could lose it all. And that is really linked to the energy of Jupiter. Jupiter represents what we would like, to obtain, like win the lotto, for example, and have millions that we can spend on ourselves, on friends, on family, and money could be mistaken for happiness. And Jupiter is in discordance with Saturn and Neptune. So Saturn is trying to put push on the brakes, to make things a bit slower so that you have time to think, so that you don't make the wrong move. But Neptune is there to also blur the situation. And if you are not exactly knowing what is going on, and if you keep on wanting to obtain more, you will eventually make a mistake. So you'll have to turn to the black moon this time, and to Vesta. Vesta is it is there to preserve harmony and balance in your life as much as possible. So the black moon represents what's hidden. So remember that because you will desire something greatly, you may forget about what is hidden behind what you want, or the consequences of what you're going to do to obtain what you want. If you forget about that, you forget about this trine, which is a very positive configuration. The black moon has something to tell you. The black moon has something to unveil. And if you do so, you will preserve harmony, balance, and well-being in your life. And you will obtain what you want, even though it may not be exactly on time, because Saturn may represent something that will make it a bit longer for you to obtain what you want. But you will most probably do so when the moon reaches the black moon and Vesta, which will be about 2.5 days multiplied by 4, 10 days. Not much, is it? 10 days later, if you've been patient enough, you'll obtain what you want after this 23rd of July. Because the next transit of the moon is, of course, when it reaches the position of the sun. And that will be on the 24th of July at 7:11 p.m. Universal Time. And I've called it, the king is dead, long live the king. Okay, the king is dead, and that is shown by the fact that the moon reaches the sun, and that the conjunction is opposite Pluto. There is a very nice configuration involving those two here, Saturn and Neptune, and there is one as well with Uranus, but there is this opposition with Pluto. Now, I will explain all this in the next video that I'll make about this new moon in Leo. For now, I thank you very much for being so faithful to me and coming back to watch my videos every time I put one on my channel. So thank you, and see you soon for another one. Bye for now.